All right, everybody, this episode of the Cadaver Lab will be just a little bit different. You know, I used to be part of a podcast called Hamicus. The subject matter was the films of the two legendary British film studios, Hammer and Amicus. Even though that podcast has long since ended, the leader of this podcast, named Brian, he's actually from the United Kingdom, asked me if I'd be a part of a panel at this year's FanX convention here in Salt Lake City. I accepted the invite, but I also figured that since I'll be doing some research and putting together a presentation for this convention, I might as well put together an episode of the Cadaver Lab while I'm at it. And I'll tell you what, all we are doing is Hammer films. Let's go. You know, there's a specific set of guidelines that the panelists were asked to follow for our presentations. We were asked to choose 3 films from Hammer or Amicus Productions to talk about. The 3 films were to be 1, Hidden Gem, the worst movie, or our least favorite, and the best. Also, we were to choose a notable monsters from these studios, notable theme from these films, and we were also given the instruction to make it free, easy, and fun, so I took that to heart, and I want to explain how my presentation will work. First of all, this video will be less of a normal video that I do and more of a presentation that I'm going to get. I guess this is a little bit of a practice run, I guess. Before I get started, I feel like I need to give you a couple of disclaimers of the things that will really influence this presentation. Number 1, I am an unabashed horror, cult, exploitation, and sci-fi fan. Hammer Studios, between the years of 1935 and 1979, released around 166 films, give or take. Their first horror/sci-fi/exploitation, etc. That film wasn't released until 1955 with the Quatermass Experiment. Even though Hammer Studios is basically synonymous with Dracula films, the first film featuring Count Dracula, played by Christopher Lee, wasn't even released until 1958 with Dracula, or The Horror of Dracula, which was the US title. But out of those 166 films, only around 66 fall into the category of horror, sci-fi, cult, exploitation, and I've only included this subset of films as being eligible for my list. So my worst isn't really the worst. It's the worst of the list of movies that I'm interested in watching. Because if we're talking about the actual worst, we'd obviously be talking about the On the Buses trilogy. On the Buses from 1971, Mutiny on the Buses from 1972, On Holiday on the Buses from 1973. Basically, they're all comedies about bus drivers. I'd be surprised if any of the audience members have seen those, but I bring them up just because I'm still bitter that Brian made me sit through them all those years ago. And disclaimer number 2, although there are many Amicus films that I do enjoy, they've only released around 28 films between the years of 1962 and 1977. I'm also not a huge fan of film anthologies, which is one of the things that Amicus is known for. So I won't get into why or anything like that, but because of this, my presentation will focus on Hammer Productions almost exclusively. Let's get into it. I want to start with my hidden gem, The Gorgon from 1964. This is my hidden gem. Because although Hammer is well known for its monsters and its horror, the Gorgon isn't really a staple in horror films like The Monster, or really any kind of film for that matter. Not only does it feature a unique monster, it's actually a great film. You know, it has the classic Hammer look and feel, which means lush sets, great costumes, amazing uses of shadows and lighting, and overall amazing performances. This film stars Hammer staples, Peter Cushing as Dr. Namaroff, Christopher Lee as Professor Carl Meister, Barbara Shelley as Carla Hoffman, who all give us excellent performances as usual. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee always have a strong presence in every film they star in. I mean, Christopher Lee even gets to give us a bit of his disagreeable and grumpy, but nothing if not regal attitude, which is always a treat. Barbara Shelley is always the picture of grace. We even have great performances by Richard Pascoe as Paul, and Michael Goodliffe as Professor Jules Heitz. This film takes place in the early 20th century in the German village of Vandorf. The town is experiencing a rash of deaths around town, where those who have passed away have been turned into stone. I mean, who else can it be? I mean, supposedly we have a mystery on our hands, but I mean, is it really a mystery since the film is called The Gorgon? And we've all seen The Clash of the Titans, so we know what happens when you look at a Gorgon. Speaking of the Clash of the Titans, that didn't come out until 1981, so this came out almost 20 years prior. The only unfortunate thing about this film is the fact that Hammer didn't have the forethought to get Ray Harryhausen to lend his stop-motion talents to this movie. There's really no comparing the Gorgon's Medusa's smooth motion and design and Prudence Hyman's portrayal of a Gorgon in this movie. However, even though this version of a Gorgon was less impressive, it was just kind of like an older woman with a snake hat and some makeup. I'll still be keeping away from those crack snakes on their head. I mean, twitching and doing all that bullcrap. When all's said and done, it's a supremely enjoyable film that I'd recommend to anyone. It really makes you think about the lengths you'll go to for love and poor Mr. Cushing. All right, so I'm going to talk about the worst, and now I really don't like to dwell on films that I don't care for, so I'll give you a quick overview of this one. It was released in 1972, Demons of the Mind. It's a psychological horror movie. Like many of its Hammer contemporaries, it's a period piece taking place in the 19th century. Because it's Hammer, you have lush sets, scenery, beautiful location, dudes with amazing beards, like super beards. This film is all about Baron Zorn, a wealthy widower who keeps his adult children Emil and Elizabeth locked in his mansion. He believes that they're tainted by a madness that was given to them genetically. Apparently their mother went crazy. So he, along with some of his colleagues, attempt to cure them of their madness by subjecting them to cruel experiments. While this is going on, there's a string of murders plaguing the nearby village, and authorities think that the Zorn family has something to do with it. A lot of weird things going on, and I'm talking Freudian type things. I don't really want to get into it here in case there's any kiddos in the room. But, if you read it, it doesn't sound that bad. It does some interesting things as it delves into topics such as madness, childhood, generational trauma, etc. But I'll tell you what, I was lucky to be able to interview Emil Zorn. He and I feel the same way about this movie and why the movie is my least favorite. But I'll go ahead and play you a clip from that interview. So I've heard rumors that you're not a huge fan of this film. You hear correctly. I'm curious as to why. This film is gorgeous. From the sprawling estate to the costumes, it delves into some rather risque topics that are rarely touched on in Hammer films. Yes, I suppose you're right. Is that all you really have to say about it? Well, if you insist. Yeah, there's some downright Freudian topics covered, and a pretty unique story for Hammer. However, have you seen the movie? I play a sniveling nincompoop. I'm a malnutritioned, pasty man who can't seem to get rid of this awful clamminess. Every time I'm on camera, I look knackered. What's even worse is I was promised a horror movie, but instead I was given a drawn-out, boring role that will haunt me forever. However, if you are in need of a cure for insomnia, this movie is what you need.
Events depicted prior to this message are fictional and not based on true life events, obviously.
Before I go on, I know that we will have someone later talk about women in horror. It will be a measured and cerebral discussion about evolving roles and the impact women have had in Hammer and Amicus films. Well, I'll leave that to her. But I still want to talk about the women of Hammer, except instead of taking a cerebral approach, I'd like to share a small video with a bunch of hot chicks. Something that we call Hammer Glamour. I quite enjoyed that, Michael. Thank you very much. Cheerio. Hammer is known for their gorgeous and classy women in their films. Hammer Glamour was a book, actually, written by Marcus Hearn in 2009. This book celebrates the leading ladies of Hammer Films productions, full of pictures and interviews with these women. There was also a documentary of the same name released in 2013, directed by the author of the book. I own that book, and I've actually recently watched the documentary. And for those interested, the documentary is on YouTube as well as archive.org, so it's out there, it's free, and it's definitely worth checking out. Hammer's Karnstein trilogy is loosely based on Sheridan de la Fanu's novella called Carmilla. Carmilla is the first example of the trope, what's become a trope, the lesbian vampire, to be put out into the world. Out of the 3 films in Hammer's Karnstein trilogy, Vampire Lovers is the closest to the original story. However, all 3 films feature Carmilla and Mircalla Karnstein, we could discuss the impact of this novella and the impact that it's had on the world of cinema as well as artistic expression, but that's not for this panel, so we'll just go on with my favorite. I've chosen Twins of Evil as my favorite film for this panel. Not only does it make the best usage of these beautiful women, but it's actually an amazing film outside of this. From 1971, this film is set in 18th century Austria. Twin sisters Maria and Frida, played by Mary and Madeline Collinson respectively, are shipped off to their aunts and uncle's home after their parents passed away. Well, their uncle Gustav Weil is the leader of a Puritan sect called the Brotherhood that regularly finds, judges, and condemns local young women as witches, seemingly with little and or no evidence of their wrongdoings. Elsewhere in the village, Count Karnstein is a member of an infamous family that were thought to be vampires. He sits upon a mountain in his giant mansion overlooking the village. Bored and always looking for the next thrill, it seems that he's gotten tired of the experiences that everyday life has to offer, so he engages in satanic rituals, looking for things to experience that are beyond what this world can offer. Oh, and this Jimmy Fallon-looking guy is interested in the arrival of the twins, if you know what I mean. Gustav wants to take him out, but Karnstein has the backing of the government, so he's untouchable. Plus, he has Joaquin, Flexipex as I like to call him. He's got him to protect him as well. Long story short, vampires get involved. The twins are polar opposites, where Maria is pure and wonderful, where Frida is mischievous and defiant. Also looking for excitement in her life, but I'll leave the rest of the movie for you to watch, but do it. It explores themes such as hypocrisy of those in power. Gustav Weil, in his supposed holy undertaking, seems to be corrupted by the power he gets. Even though, spoiler, no matter how evil and tyrannical Gustav was, he ended up being correct about the situation with Karnstein and Frida. When watching this movie and you have Karnstein and Gustav Weil facing off, who's the bad guy? Because they're both arrogant jerks. Some themes of this are the decadence of the bourgeoisie, kind of a look at the old adage, idle hands are the devil's workshop when it comes to Karnstein, the suppression of females, both Weil's wife, the twins, and all of the witches that get burned. Needless to say, it looks gorgeous, not shocking since it is a Hammer film. The sets, Hammer glamour, okay, costuming are amazing. They're all top-notch. The only bad thing is that the day for night scenes are especially bad, but could that be because of the HD remaster? I don't know. It's obvious that Hammer has established vampires as their favorite monster. They did justice to Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, even the Mummy, but they produce more vampire films than any other monster. I'm not including man, I guess. We need to remember is that even outside the Dracula and Karnstein series, there are so many others that need to be checked out and appreciated. Despite what Emil said in his interview, to be honest with you, there's really not a Hammer horror movie that I wouldn't recommend that everyone watch at least once. And so basically, this was supposed to be about a 10-minute panel that with questions, stuff like that I'm going to be doing on Saturday. But that's in essence what it is. I put together those videos, put together those slides. But that's all I've got for today. Thanks for bearing with me on this one. I know it's a little bit weird. But I will tell you what, appreciate you guys watching. Go to corpsecollective.com, check it out. Other than that, I guess I'll catch you later.